On the positive side, the unemployment rate ticked down to 8.9% last month, falling below 9% for the first time in 2 years. Employers added a sizable 192,000 jobs, raising hopes the momentum for a recovery has finally kicked in. But there's also this figure. Gas prices have shot up 28 cents in the last 10 days to $3.47 per gallon. And many fear that if that number continues to rise, it could halt the economy's recovery in its tracks. We have two correspondents on this story. Lindsay Davis is covering the good news, while TJ Winnick has the bad.
There is reason to be optimistic.
We've now had months and months of positive job growth.
And reason for concern.
There's all this fear that's out there, and that really goes a long way to making prices go up.
The good news? A substantial 222,000 jobs created in the private sector. Huge gains across the board, including 33,000 jobs in manufacturing, 33,000 in construction, and 34,000 in healthcare.
So does it look like we're finally starting to get out of the woods?
I'm always optimistic, but certainly this jobs report confirms that optimism is warranted.
You get the sense that maybe the job market has finally turned a corner.
I think we're moving in the right direction.
So when you're looking at the jobs glass, is it half full?
Definitely half full.
But those numbers are last month's. Now Americans are facing $4 a gallon gasoline in some states, most widely in California.
I think the price of gas is ridiculous.
We were around 65 and now we're at 95.
To fill up your SUV.
The unrest in Libya, the world's 17th largest oil producer, is at least partially to blame. Nelson Valdez knows he picked a heck of a time to start his own courier business.
If I have to fill up the tank even twice every 3 days, that's going to be, $40, $45 extra a week.
And rising gas prices take a huge toll on the overall economy. Each 1 cent increase in gas prices means $1.2 billion less in consumer spending over a year. That means in the past month alone, the economy lost $41 billion.
If costs go up to ship goods, that's going to be passed on to the consumer who already can't afford gas.
All this extra fuel cost has to get passed on to the consumer because it costs more to ship their goods to market.
Investors, however, are hopeful. The Dow is up more than 5% since the start of the year.
But the housing market lags. Median housing prices are 30% lower than their all-time high in 2005. And more than 1 million families are losing their homes to foreclosure. This was the scene in Atlanta this week as hundreds of homeowners lined up for federal assistance in cutting their mortgage payments.
I've lost my job and have making less money.
But with consumer confidence the highest it's been in 3 years, more people are spending, which will hopefully keep the economy growing.
And Lindsay and TJ are here along with Barron senior editor Michael Santoli. Michael, will turn to you in just a moment. But Lindsay, I do want to talk to you about the report we saw yesterday, because not only did we see the unemployment rate decline, we also saw an increase in temporary hires. Now, that usually is a precursor to permanent job creation, right?
Yeah, well, what's especially significant about February is that we saw the highest increase in the last 2 years as far as the number of people who had part-time jobs who were then offered full-time jobs. And then another glimmer of hope here that we can't forget is that 21,000 of these new jobs were created in the restaurant industry, which of course means that people are getting out and spending.
Service sector consumer confidence is up. But TJ, I want to turn to you right now because you were covering oil prices, and we saw them peak to $104 a barrel, up $7 in just 1 week. There's increased pressure on the administration to tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Any indication that the president is willing to do that now?
Well, experts really differ as to how much of a difference it could really make. We know so much of what drives gas prices is fear. Proponents say if tapping the reserves reduces that fear even a little bit, then it's worth it. But right now, the White House does not think that's necessary.
Well, Michael, you follow all of this every day. With regards to the unemployment report, sometimes when we see that decline, it's not necessarily good news, right? It's that people give up looking. Is that the case this time, or was last month different?
To a degree, yes. We basically created more jobs than we actually had an increase in the labor force. And the labor force is defined as people with jobs or looking for them. So, yes, there is some low labor force participation rate right now. It's about a 25-year low. It does give you a little bit of pause, but I do think in general the trends are what we'd like to see, which is private companies are finally getting the confidence to start doing some hiring that should actually drag more people back into the labor force, which could, by the way, cause the unemployment rate to tick up even as jobs numbers get better the rest of the year.
Right, and as we have seen the private sector add over 200,000 jobs, we did see a decline of about 30,000 jobs in the government public sector. And a lot of economists are concerned now that we could continue to see maybe even hundreds of thousands of government, both state and local jobs cut. Will that derail any economic recovery?
I don't think it'll derail a recovery. I do think it's a headwind, though. Obviously, the government sector is dealing on every level with huge budget deficits, and they obviously are going to be a net decliner in terms of contributing to jobs. But I don't think that's necessarily enough to offset the positive trends. We have record corporate profits out there. We have all these things that we'd like to see in terms of this point in the recovery are in place to have continued job growth. But the government sector is definitely a drag.
And aside from just the government sector woes, as TJ was talking about, oil rates at 2-year highs right now. We're also seeing that there are other factors. Food prices are high as well. Could that derail an economic recovery?
I don't think yet it can. In 2008, we were much higher. We were about $150 a barrel oil. I do think you have to get north of $4 a gallon for gasoline before really you see it truly jeopardize the recovery. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, Michael, Lindsay, TJ, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it this morning.